Steve.
G'day, Terry, Joe, how you going, boys?
G'day, mate. How are you?
Long time since I spoke. I think I spoke to you at the start of this footy season, actually, and I thought it'd be a good time just to check in and touch base now that the back room's sort of a bit more settled. I want to just actually give a shout out to our ex-president. There's been a lot of love for Luke Sayers, but I looked at through the fixture this year and thought, when was the internal review initiated? And I went back through our fixture and I thought, probably for me, the down period we had was the double header both in Sydney. So Sydney and the SCG. And for me, the West Coast game was probably our worst loss for the year. And that's when I thought, that was obviously when the ex-president said, right, let's pull the trigger, let's do the internal review. And also to his credit, he didn't see out his full tenure. He decided to pull back to let Luke Sayers come in. So Luke Sayers was able to restructure the board, get Brian Cook on board, and that wouldn't have maybe happened if the old president had stayed on and done his full tenure. So all these things, the domino effect sort of started from the ex-president, and I thought I'd just give a bit of a shout out to him because in hindsight, he's really initiated a lot of our the wheels in motion really set from him. So, and obviously Luke Sayers has been in contact with him and they've had private talks. So it's all really, look, obviously getting Diesel on board as well. Look, that was massive. And then from there, the CEO and now Fossey, I think we've done fantastically well. It's just really all fallen our way. So
yeah,
bring on next year.
I feel like Mark's legacy will not be really appreciated until maybe 10 or 20 years down the track once this redevelopment's done. And like, I don't know what the optics of it look like, but does this redevelopment mean potentially we can play a game there? Or, I mean, it's going to be the hub of the AFLW. It's going to be one of the better grounds going around. And I think once that's all up and running and we're there watching training and we've got this beautiful new facility, I feel like that will ultimately be one of his core, the core parts of his legacy. Now, the on-field is inexcusable. There's no, we'll say it. I'm sure he'll say it as well. But it's not to say that he didn't do good for the club.
Oh, mate, he did. It's spot. Sorry, Steve. It's spot on. Like, the on-field inexcusable, but put that aside, what he did for us off-field, got us back in the black. Those developments that are going on that you spoke about, Tez, if it's not appreciated now, I struggle to think when it will be appreciated because it's there to see. The successes off field financially were there the whole way. It's what we got bombarded with newsletters every week. And, as a fan, you're appreciative to see your club go from strength to strength in those positions. So it's definitely not underappreciated.
And it's an interesting thing. I always look back at the ex-president and thought, they looked at how when they brought in Kane Little 3-4 years ago, and the great thing he's done in some ways is that we've become financial again. I mean, when you look back, we were in debt a year after we won our last grand final virtually. So how can any club in the modern era be in debt after you win a grand final? So we finally got ourselves back in the black. It's taken us all this time. And obviously, I know last year we all banged on about the fact we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes with redevelopment of the club and that sort of thing. But I think we had to go through that process first before we could get to this stage today. So I heard the Melbourne were talking after the grand final. They're giving some gratis to the old president, Bartlett, and said he did a lot of heavy lifting and he wasn't appreciated for all that stuff he did 6-12 months ago. And they're finally recognising the good work that he did. So we might be in the same boat with our ex-president in 12, 18 months' time for doing what he's done in the last few weeks. So
it's very selfless. It's very selfless. I think that's the way that you can put it. It's a very selfless position at times.
Yeah. And the thing is too, like I was saying, like you look at Richmond in 2017 and even Melbourne, they've come from outside the 8 to win a grand final. I'm not saying we're going to do that next year, but I heard you through the year, Terry, screaming out for. We're all saying the assistant coaches we had to change. We've done all that. We've done a complete clean out of assistant coaches apart from Luke Power. So everything we wanted we screamed at during the years actually happened now. So I think everything is in order for us to move
100%.
forward for next season.
That's
So-
why I'm so much more calm now, because this is what
Yep.
we screamed for. It's happened. You know, they weren't stubborn, and they didn't, you know, keep going with it. They realized it wasn't working, and they made the move.
For sure.
And I remember, Terry, you asked a question a few weeks ago about what, and you put it out to all the viewers, what was our worst loss for the year? And a lot of people said, oh, round 2. But I always thought that West Coast loss, when we played West Coast, when they had half a side in, and I think that was the trigger point. I think that was when we thought we were drinking the Kool-Aid. We thought, oh, we're going to be a top 8 side. I think that's when the committee thought, right, we have to pull the trigger now. We've got to do an internal review. We're not as good as we think we are. We've gone to Sydney, played West Coast on at the SCG, and got belted with them having half a side in. And I think that was that. We'll look back at that game. I think, right, I'm really glad we did the internal review, and so far, from what we can see, it's paid dividends. And Diesel coming back onto the board, that's going to be fantastic for us. I mean,
It's
nothing
exciting.
against Jenny Pratt. You know, like Pog would say, you know, she's writing checks and buying art and all that sort of thing. I think we had to move past that. You know, bring some more football people back onto the board. And
Yeah, it's exciting. It's very, very exciting. It's gonna be a fascinating time as a Carlton supporter. That's the way to put it. I think spot on, Steve.
Love it. Thanks a lot, Steve. Appreciate you coming on, mate.
no, thanks, Terry. Thanks, Joey.